You think walking away ends it? Think again. That's exactly when the narcissist starts the hoover. Named after a vacuum cleaner for a reason, it's designed to suck you right back into their orbit. You might feel calm, detached, even healed, but the narcissist doesn't want closure. They want access, emotional, mental, and sometimes financial. Hoovering isn't random, it's deliberate, strategic, and often subtle at first. The messages begin as whispers. I miss you. Can we talk? I've changed. Small gestures, a single text, a thoughtful email, maybe even a memory they know will tug at your heart. The goal isn't reconciliation, it's testing your vulnerability. Can they still get a reaction? Can they still trigger your emotions? That reaction, your emotional energy, is their supply. The narcissist understands timing. They won't reach out immediately after the breakup. That would be too obvious. They wait until you're beginning to heal, when your defenses are lowering and your empathy is returning. Then they strike with just enough warmth to make you doubt your resolve. That's the brilliance of the hoover. It exploits the part of you that still believes in connection, in resolution, in the idea that maybe this time it could be different. And here's the subtlety. The hoover doesn't always show up as words. It can be social media activity, a new relationship flaunted, or mutual friends acting as messengers. Sometimes it's indirect, a sudden show of success, happiness, or spiritual growth meant to make you question your own progress. It's all designed to target your ego and emotions, to make you feel curiosity, longing, or even guilt. I once had a client, a woman named Marissa, whose ex reached out 3 months after their divorce with a long, vulnerable letter. I've realized so much about myself, he wrote. I want to make things right. On the surface, it seemed sincere. But when we analyzed the language, the patterns, and the timing, it became clear. The goal wasn't repair, it was reaction. The narcissist wanted her to break down, engage, and validate his self-perceived growth. The hoover is always personalized. They study your emotional weaknesses, desires, and patterns of attachment. They know exactly which buttons to press to make you respond. Sometimes it's guilt, sometimes nostalgia, sometimes concern for their well-being. And once you respond, even slightly, they've hooked you back into the cycle, often before you realize it. The key to surviving a hoover is recognition. You must see it for what it is, a manipulative attempt to regain control. That awareness is your shield. Without your reaction, the hoover collapses. They have no power over silence, detachment, and boundaries. Not all hoovers look the same. The narcissist has a repertoire of tactics, each designed to exploit specific vulnerabilities. Understanding the different types can save you from falling back into their trap. First, the apology hoovers. This is the classic. Long, heartfelt messages filled with admissions of past mistakes, promises of change, and confessions of insight. On the surface, it's remorseful and self-aware. But beneath the surface, it's calculated. The apology hoover aims to tug at your empathy and make you feel responsible for their growth. They're not apologizing to heal the relationship. They're apologizing to see if you'll react, forgive, or re-engage. Second, the nostalgia hoovers. These hoovers rely on memory and emotion. The narcissist resurrects shared moments, remember when stories, and reminders of intimacy or joy you once felt together. It's a subtle play on sentimentality, designed to make you question whether leaving was the right choice. Nostalgia hoovers are powerful because they attack your heart, not your mind, creating an emotional pull that can bypass rational defenses. Third, the threat or fear hoovers. Some hoovers are aggressive or manipulative in nature. They may hint at personal crises, threaten reputational damage, or subtly imply consequences if you don't respond. This isn't overt violence, but psychological leverage. The narcissist knows fear is a strong motivator and can manipulate your concern, guilt, or anxiety to regain control. Fourth, the hoover through others. Indirect hoovers are just as effective. Mutual friends, family members, or co-workers become messengers, delivering news, emotions, or manipulative phrases meant to pull you in. The narcissist may spread rumors, flaunt new relationships, or strategically reveal progress in public spaces to make you react. Even without direct contact, the cycle of control can resume. Fifth, the seductive or charm hoovers. This is the "I've changed" or "I miss you" tactic, dressed in charm and charisma. They might appear vulnerable, apologetic, or even affectionate. They know your triggers: a smile, a soft tone, a compliment, and they exploit them. Their goal is to rekindle the attachment, even temporarily, so they can regain emotional supply. The common thread through all these tactics is calculation. They are designed to test your boundaries, measure your reactions, and exploit residual attachment. They prey on hope, compassion, guilt, and nostalgia, the very things that make you human. Here's the reality: responding, even minimally, feeds the cycle. Every reaction validates their strategy. The only true protection is recognition and detachment. Seeing the hoover for what it is, a manipulative tactic, strips it of its power. Silence, boundaries, and emotional clarity are your defense. The hoover is seductive because it appeals to your desire for resolution, closure, and connection. But once you recognize the strategy, you see the pattern. It's not reconciliation, it's control. The danger of hoovering isn't just in the tactics, it's in the emotional storm it creates inside you. Even after you've left, even after you've healed, the hoover can stir confusion, doubt, and longing. That's why it's so effective. It preys on your vulnerability and your human desire for closure, connection, and understanding. When the narcissist reaches out, your mind immediately starts replaying the past. You remember the good moments, the promises, the intimacy, the times when you believed in them. And your heart reacts before your logic can intervene. This is the emotional lever they rely on. They don't need to be present physically. Their words, memories, or even subtle social signals are enough to pull at your emotional core. There's a second layer: guilt. Hoovering often triggers self-doubt. Did I overreact? Maybe they've really changed. What if I was too harsh? That guilt is a tool. It shifts the focus from their behavior to your response. Suddenly, you're defending your boundaries rather than observing theirs, and once that shift happens, they've regained subtle control. The third layer is hope. This is the most insidious. Even after months of abuse, the hoover can ignite a flicker of belief. Maybe this time is different. They'll present themselves as wiser, calmer, remorseful, even spiritually awakened. Your mind wants to believe the narrative, and your empathy, hope, and longing for resolution create a dangerous cocktail. That flicker of hope is exactly what the narcissist counts on. It draws you back into the cycle before you realize it. Then there's the impact of inconsistency. Hoovering is unpredictable. They don't appear on a fixed schedule. Sometimes they reach out months after a breakup. Other times it's sudden and chaotic, timed to coincide with moments when you're emotionally vulnerable, holidays, birthdays, or stressful life events. This unpredictability keeps your emotional system on alert, heightening anxiety and making it difficult to detach fully. A client once described it perfectly. It's like I can't breathe. I want to ignore him, but every text makes me question everything I've built since leaving. That's the psychological signature of a hoover. It triggers the very attachment bonds that took years for the narcissist to form. Even strong, self-aware survivors can find themselves momentarily destabilized. The lesson is clear. The emotional response the hoover provokes is part of the trap. The narcissist doesn't need your return. They need your reaction. Your curiosity, guilt, hope, or concern fuels the cycle. Without it, their power evaporates. Silence and detachment neutralize the strategy, recognizing the hoover as manipulation rather than a genuine attempt at connection is the only path to lasting freedom. Resisting a narcissist's hoover requires more than willpower. It requires strategy, clarity, and unwavering boundaries. The hoover works because it targets your vulnerabilities, empathy, hope, guilt, and attachment. Understanding how to protect yourself is crucial for breaking free from the cycle once and for all. First, recognize the pattern. The first step is awareness. Hoovering is never random. It follows a predictable rhythm. There's often a period of absence followed by a carefully timed reach out designed to trigger emotional responses. Whether it's a text, a social media post, or an indirect message through mutual acquaintances, it's always purposeful. Recognizing the strategy removes the element of surprise. And when the hoover loses its shock value, its power diminishes. Second, establish and enforce boundaries. Boundaries are your strongest defense. Decide in advance what forms of contact you will or will not accept. Will you respond to texts, calls, social media interactions? Stick to your rules and don't allow emotional manipulation to push them aside. The narcissist will test your limits, often multiple times, to gauge whether you've truly detached. Every violation of your boundaries is an opportunity for them to regain control. Never give it. Third, emotional detachment. The hoover works because it triggers an emotional response. The more reactive you are, the more successful the manipulation. Detachment doesn't mean indifference or cruelty. It means maintaining calm, observing without engaging, and refusing to validate their tactics. If a message arrives, read it, don't react immediately, or better yet, don't read it at all. Every unanswered attempt strips the hoover of its power. 4. Protect your inner circle. Narcissists may try to pull your friends, family, or colleagues into the drama. Don't allow them to weaponize your support network. Inform those close to you of your boundaries and the tactics at play. The more people in your life who understand the hoover, the less likely the narcissist can use indirect channels to destabilize you. 5. Focus on your growth. One of the most effective defenses is forward momentum. Reinvest your energy into your healing, your goals, and your passions. The hoover loses potency when you are fully engaged in your own life. Success, self-care, and clarity of purpose create a shield that the narcissist cannot penetrate. 6. Document the pattern. Keep a record of every attempt to contact you, every emotional manipulation, and every boundary violation. Writing it down helps clarify the pattern, reduce emotional confusion, and provides proof if legal or co-parenting disputes arise. The essence of resisting a hoover is simple in theory, but challenging in practice. See it, don't react, enforce boundaries, and protect your energy. The narcissist's tactics rely entirely on your engagement. Remove that engagement, and the hoover collapses. A client once said, "Ignoring him felt like betrayal at first, but then I realized it was the only act of loyalty to myself." That's the ultimate defense. The moment you stop feeding the cycle, the narcissist's power evaporates. Their hoover is nothing more than a ghost, loud in presence, powerless in absence. Even when you resist the hoover, repeated attempts leave a mark. The subtle, long-term effects aren't always obvious at first. Sometimes it's a whisper of doubt, a fleeting memory, a twinge of guilt. Even survivors with strong boundaries can find themselves questioning their own judgment or feeling residual anxiety. Understanding these effects is key to maintaining resilience. The first impact is emotional whiplash. The Hoover triggers old patterns, nostalgia, guilt, hope, and anger, often within seconds. Your nervous system reacts as if you are still entangled in the relationship, even if your mind knows otherwise. This inconsistency in emotional regulation is exhausting and can make you feel unsteady or vulnerable. Second is cognitive dissonance. The narcissist may present as remorseful, charming, or evolved, while your memory tells you otherwise. You start questioning your own perception. Did I overreact? Could they really have changed? That internal debate is exactly what they're counting on. It keeps you mentally engaged with them, even from a distance. Residual attachment is another consequence. Hoovering taps into deep-seated emotional bonds, creating a tug-of-war between logic and longing. Even after months of separation, a single message or carefully crafted gesture can reignite those attachments. That's why narcissists time their Hoovers carefully, holidays, birthdays, or stressful life events, when your emotional defenses are naturally lower. Then there's the illusion of hope. Hoovering often presents the idea of reconciliation or change, dangling a carrot that your brain interprets as possibility. Even when you intellectually know better, hope can bypass reason and trigger emotional responses. This is why many survivors end up engaging despite their best intentions. The long-term strategy to combat these effects is consistency in boundaries. Each ignored message, each unresponded Hoover, reinforces your autonomy and diminishes the narcissist's influence. Over time, repeated non-engagement trains your nervous system to respond differently, reducing the emotional shock each Hoover attempt can create. Another essential tactic is emotional processing and self-validation. Acknowledge the feelings the Hoover triggers without acting on them. Journal, meditate, or speak with a trusted confidant. Recognize the residual impact of past trauma without letting it dictate your decisions. Your feelings are valid. Your responses must be deliberate, not reactive. Education and awareness also build resilience. Understanding the patterns of Hoovering, the timing, the tactics, the psychological traps, equips you to anticipate and resist manipulation. Knowledge turns uncertainty into strategy, confusion into clarity. Finally, reinvest in your life. Focus on growth, goals, relationships, and personal achievements. The more your life thrives independently of the narcissist, the less impact their Hoovers can have. A narcissist's power exists only where your energy, attention, and emotional response are available. Withdraw those, and the Hoover loses all meaning. The Hoover is a test, a lure, and a trap. But with awareness, boundaries, and consistent self-care, you can neutralize it and reclaim the peace you fought so hard to build. By the time a narcissist has repeatedly attempted Hoovering, the stakes get higher. The patterns become more sophisticated, their tactics more targeted. This is where advanced strategies are critical to fully protect your emotional and psychological autonomy. Long-term freedom requires more than ignoring a text. It requires creating an environment where their influence can no longer penetrate. First, absolute boundaries. A casual boundary is insufficient once the narcissist has learned your weak points. Absolute boundaries mean no contact through any channel: phone, email, social media, mutual friends, or professional intermediaries. Every open door is an invitation for manipulation. The narcissist thrives on access. Cut it completely. Second, no engagement, no debate. Hoovering often triggers a reaction because we feel compelled to justify ourselves or respond. The narcissist depends on your response. Engage in no debate, argument, or clarification. Silence is your shield. Every word you give them, even seemingly neutral, is fuel for their control. Remember, the cycle isn't about communication, it's about leverage. Third, Preemptive defenses anticipate the timing and style of hoovers. Holidays, anniversaries, stressful events, and personal milestones are favorite windows. Mentally prepare yourself in advance, affirming that any attempt to pull you back is a manipulation, not a plea for reconciliation. Visualization, journaling, or verbal affirmations can help reinforce your resolve. Fourth, emotional support network. Narcissists attempt indirect hoovers through friends, family, or colleagues. Protect your inner circle by explaining your boundaries and the tactics you're facing. Make it clear that any attempt to relay messages from the narcissist is off limits. Allies in your environment act as a buffer, ensuring the hoover cannot infiltrate through proxy channels. Fifth, document and protect. Maintain a log of all hoover attempts, including messages, emails, social media interactions, and behavioral patterns. Documentation serves two purposes. It clarifies patterns for your own mental processing, and it protects you legally if disputes, harassment, or co-parenting conflicts arise. Sixth, reaffirm your self-concept. Repeated hoovers aim to destabilize your identity, to make you doubt your choices, morality, and perception. Counter this by consistently reaffirming your values, achievements, and progress. Self-affirmation acts as a psychological shield, reducing susceptibility to the emotional lure of the narcissist. Seventh, focus on life momentum. The strongest defense against hoovers is living fully in your own life. Pursue your goals, nurture healthy relationships, and invest in personal growth. When your energy, attention, and emotion are fully engaged in yourself, the narcissist's attempts lose all potency. Their power exists only where you allow it. The overarching truth: a hoover is only effective if you respond, emotionally or physically. Consistency, preparation, and detachment render the tactic powerless. Over time, your nervous system learns to remain steady, your mind learns to remain skeptical, and your life continues uninterrupted. The ultimate freedom comes not from outsmarting the narcissist, but from no longer needing to. Once your boundaries, awareness, and emotional resilience are solid, the hoover collapses on its own, a ghost of control that no longer has a host. Here's the undeniable truth about narcissistic hoovers. They are not about reconciliation, love, or growth. They are about control. The messages, gestures, and indirect maneuvers are all designed to test your boundaries, elicit emotional reactions, and draw you back into a cycle that leaves you vulnerable, anxious, and uncertain. Understanding this is the first step toward lasting liberation. The hoover cycle has a predictable rhythm: absence, testing, emotional baiting, nostalgia, apology, and charm. Each attempt is carefully calibrated to exploit your specific vulnerabilities. And while the tactics may evolve, the intent remains the same: to regain influence over your emotions. The narcissist doesn't care whether you respond, they only care whether you react. That reaction, hope, guilt, curiosity, or anger, is their fuel. Awareness is your ultimate shield. Recognizing the hoover for what it is, a strategic manipulation rather than a genuine attempt at reconciliation, removes its potency. Once you identify the patterns, the tactics, and the timing, you strip the narcissist of the advantage. A hoover cannot work if it encounters detachment and unwavering boundaries. Setting and enforcing boundaries is critical. Absolute, non-negotiable limits on contact prevent the narcissist from regaining access. Silence is your weapon. Responding, even minimally, invites further engagement. Every interaction strengthens the cycle. Every ignored attempt weakens it. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it is survival. Equally important is emotional resilience. Hoovering often triggers nostalgia, doubt, and residual attachment. These responses are natural, but they must be managed intentionally. Journaling, mindfulness, and support from trusted friends or therapists provide tools to process these emotions without succumbing to the narcissist's lure. Reinforcing your self-concept, your values, achievements, and autonomy is essential. The stronger your identity, the less impact the Hoover has. Long-term freedom comes from momentum. Engage fully in your life, cultivate your passions, and invest in healthy relationships. The narcissist's power exists only where you allow it. When your focus, energy, and attention are rooted in your growth, the Hoover becomes irrelevant, a ghost attempting to haunt a life that no longer belongs to it. Documenting the attempts also strengthens your position. Tracking messages, interactions, and manipulations clarifies patterns, reduces confusion, and can serve as protection in legal or co-parenting situations. It transforms emotional chaos into clarity and doubt into strategy. Finally, remember this: the narcissist will always attempt to pull back, test, and charm. That's their nature. But you are no longer a participant in their script. You are the author of your own narrative. By refusing engagement, enforcing boundaries, and focusing on your growth, you dismantle the Hoover's power entirely. The ultimate liberation isn't revenge or confrontation. It's peace. It's living without the emotional pull of manipulation, without the anxiety of uncertainty, and without the hope that their performance of change will ever become reality. When the Hoover collapses on its own, it leaves only clarity, freedom, and the knowledge that you control your own life, unshaken, unhooked, and unbroken.